everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Your story is your mission. My name is Beatrice Adams, and on my channel, my goal is to teach as many people as I can reach how to become a nonprofit at the state and then how to become a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. It is a lengthy process because I will be showing you step by step. I will not be giving you just a little bit of information. You'll be getting every bit of information you need. I will be showing you on my screen how to prepare the documentation so you can do it. We need all the nonprofits that we can get because we have a lot of people that need to be served, as well as the earth. Let's keep it clean, y'all, and so on and so forth. So anyway, before we get started, I want to thank each and every one of you for hanging in here with me. I know that it's been a moment in between my videos going out. So my new goal is to get these videos out every Wednesday because I know you're excited about getting the nonprofit started, and I'm excited for you. So I really want to get this information out. So hang in there with me. Don't give up. So thank you again. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to start with bylaws. I will show you how to prepare your bylaws, what the important information is that should be included in the bylaws. Now, let me point out, if you're a church, these are not the bylaws for you. These are general bylaws for nonprofits. It would not be for a church. A church has a lot more information that will need to be included in their bylaws. So I just wanted to point this out. These are the bylaws for your nonprofit that I will say is the basic information that must be included in your bylaws to get approved. Hang in there with me. Let's go ahead and get to that. Again, I left off in my last video. It was part 2, long form 1023. That was the last video. In that video, I left off in section 2. Part 2, and the last question, or the next to the last question, was, have you adopted bylaws? We're going to answer yes because we're going to prepare those bylaws. Remember, we do not answer no, because then you don't have to upload the bylaws, but you do have to give them a good reason as to why you don't have bylaws or how you will govern, your organization. There's no need for that. You need to establish this foundation now before the nonprofit gets going, because when your nonprofit gets going, you want to be able to hit the ground running because you have your foundation intact. So don't forget, there's a checklist at the bottom of the screen. That's something that I would encourage you to get because it's going to tell you everything that you need that would need to be uploaded at the end of the long form 1023 so that you will be able to become a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. So don't forget to get that checklist below, and I will see you on the screen. Let's go ahead and get started with those bylaws.
Okay, everyone. So here we are. I'm at pay.gov, and you all should have already established or created your account at pay.gov. Here we are. This is where we're going to start part 2, organizational structure. Now, I've already addressed all of these questions in the last video, which was part 2 of the long form 1023. So I'm going to scroll down here because we're going to go ahead and get started with the bylaws. And see, this is the question that we have to address. Remember, I said I will not go through the whole form at one time. I will go through the form, and once we get to the part where it's asking us to present something to the IRS, we're going to stop and we are going to address that and go ahead and prepare that information. So here we are with, have you adopted bylaws? We're going to say yes. So it's saying, if yes, at the end of this form, upload a current copy showing the date of adoption, and that's what we're going to do. We don't say no because we're not going to do that and then explain how you select your officers. We're going to go ahead and make sure our foundation is set up from the get-go so that when all of this is approved, you'll be able to go ahead and hit the ground running and you won't have to backtrack. So yeah, we have adopted bylaws and we're getting ready to address that. And we already addressed this. Just go back and look at that last video as far as, are you a successor to another organization know. So I'm going to click next, and this is where we'll stop because I will now go on and show you how to complete your bylaws. Okay, so here I have the bylaws pulled up for our made up foundation, Pretty Paws Foundation Inc. Again, this is purely instructional. I don't know if Pretty Paws Foundation is the real company, I mean foundation, but this is just instructional. I've made up that name. So this is the bylaws. And what we're going to do is go ahead. I'm going to go through this page by page, and I wanted to show you this in PDF format so you would get a really good idea of how it should look when you actually prepare yours. Now, of course, Word doc, whatever you use, I of course use Word and Microsoft Word. And so we are going to go ahead and do this. And this is why I didn't want to just do a video with some nice pictures that will give you the general idea. I wanted to show you everything that's included in the bylaws. So again, that you will get a good understanding of how it should look in the format. I will also put this same set of bylaws in the well, not the comment section, but I will list it below so that you will be able to get a copy of it, and it will be in PDF format, but you'll be able to get a copy of it and print it out, put it on your computer, whatever, so that you can then go from there and have it so you don't have to stop and start the video each and every time. I will also go over certain sections of the video. I will actually point out things that are absolutely important. I'll read those all the way through, but I will not read through every section. I don't think you want me to do that. But anyway, so here we are, Bylaws of Pretty Paws Foundation. Isn't that such a cute little puppy? That puppy looks like my sister's little furry girl named Daisy. So anyway, that's it. So as you can see, we want to list bylaws of and then put the foundation's name or the nonprofit organization's name here. Then this is your first page. And then you want to list your EIN number. This is a made up EIN number here, but this is where you want to list your EIN number. Then after that, you want to put adopted, whatever day that you adopt your bylaws. As a general rule of thumb, I always put the date that the state approved my articles of incorporation. You can do what you like, but that just because I deal with so many clients, it's just easier for me to do that. The IRS is certainly okay with that. So yeah, I just put the date that it was adopted, July 5th of 2023. That's what's in our last video. And here you want to just put your name and then you want to put your title. Now, this is the executive director's title. Here you won't put like the treasurer and secretary. That goes on another page. So anyway, and then you want to put your address. And this will be the principal address of the office location. Um, More than likely, because you are new at this, it will be that you're working from home. And so that will be your actual address. That will be privy to the IRS. You do not send bylaws to the state. So, but again, but it does go to the IRS. So that's the address. Probably when you incorporate as well for your principal office address, you should put, if you work from home, that's the address again that you'll need to put as far as the physical address. And then, of course, if you have a PO box, certainly for your mailing address, you can do that as well. Again, bylaws do not go to the state, it goes to the IRS. Now, remember in my last video, when I'm referencing the long form 1023, I mentioned that you need to put the name of the foundation and the EIN number at the top of every document page that you upload to the IRS. It's a really a big deal. They have to have it on every single page of every single document that's uploaded. Okay, so please absolutely do that or it will kick back to you. Now, here I have bylaws, and here I put date of adoption, which is July 5th, 2023. Again, this is made up. I think you get that by now, but this is the date that I started the video and I just put that date in. So we will pretend again that this is the date that the state actually approved the articles of incorporation for Brady Paws Foundation Inc. And I list here, I put the comma, the period. Again, watch my videos, watch every one of them, because if you don't, this will not make sense to you. But here, this is how it's listed at the state. It's got the commas, it's got the ink. Remember, I mentioned the EIN letter does not put the comma or the period. So I think I said that wrong, but it's got the comma and the period here, and this is how it will show at the state. This is how you want it to show on your documents. Again, I said in the last video, the EIN letter does not include commas or periods, those type of specialized characters. So again, that's why it's important to watch each one of the videos. Now, at the beginning of your bylaws, the name of the organization is Pretty Paws Foundation Inc. This is what you want to have. You want to identify the organization. You want to you want in your bylaws it to show the office location, the actual street address of the office location. But see here, it says, and at such other places as shall be designated by the board of directors from time to time by resolution. I thought that was important to put in there because you never know, especially when you're new and you're working from home, you never know if you're going to be able to meet at your home. I know with the foundation that my friends and I started, we had other locations that we would meet at. It could be the library, we had to do research or maybe meet with someone, or it could be at your local Starbucks. You never know. So you do want to put in here that there are other places that you may meet other than that. But again, it's got to be designated by the board of directors, okay, and by resolution. What's important here is the organization has not been formed for the making of any profit or personal financial gain. The assets and income of the organization shall not be distributable to or benefit the trustees or directors or officers or other individuals other than for payment of reasonable compensation to employees and independent contractors for services provided for the benefit of the organization. So, can you pay yourself as a nonprofit? Absolutely. It just needs to be listed in your bylaws as such. Again, it's not saying you can't pay yourself. It's just saying that the assets and the income of the organization shall not be distributed to or benefit the trustees, directors, so on and so forth. But again, see that it um, it can be as far as payment of reasonable compensation. All right. Organization. This is important. Well, it's all important, but this is where it tells the IRS that the organization is formed exclusively for charitable, educational and religious purposes. Now, this is what I generally put in every bylaws. Doesn't mean now if you're just charitable and educational and it's not religious, you don't have to put that. But just as a general rule, I just put all three. It's not going to hurt anything. Again, you don't have to include educational. You can just say charitable purposes, what have you, but this is just what I do. Because I do actually set up a lot of nonprofits for people they may not be a church, but they may be a ministry of some sort, or they may not have a physical location, but it's just important to some of my clients that we include religious purposes, whether they're, a ministry or not. It's totally up to you. It says, this organization shall not carry on any other activities not permitted to be carried on by an organization exempt from federal income tax. What that means is right here. The organization shall not participate in any political campaign in any manner. The organization shall not attempt to influence legislation. The organization is formed exclusively for charitable and educational purposes and has no authority to issue capital stock. If you do not put that in there, you will not get approved because you cannot participate in any political campaign in any manner, nor can you attempt to influence legislation. So keep that in mind. That's important as for the nonprofit. Statement of purpose is where you're going to put your mission. And here I have, remember, I have that video on how to create your mission statement. Make sure you look at that because you want your mission statement to be a solid one, because your mission statement will go a long way in helping you to determine which grant funders your mission lines up with that will hopefully give you grant funding. Like if your mission lines up with theirs, they are more than likely going to take you as a serious candidate for grant funding. So here I have the mission of Pretty Paws Foundation, Inc. is to subsidize grooming and veterinary costs for inner city pet owners with limited income, while educating the owner on proper animal care and nutrition to avert disease and sickness. So again, make sure you have a well-rounded mission statement. Then you can put your vision. Remember, see how on the next page? Here we are. Make sure that's there. And I do the footnote just for my purposes, but yeah, make sure this is at the beginning of every page. Next, statement of fundamental truths. Now, this is something that I put in. This is something that you do not have to put in. But again, most of the clients that I work with, they all are, they have some element of religion to them, if that makes any sense. Like they do want to know that they can pray with their board, not necessarily volunteers, but with their board, and they won't get called, you know, to the carpet on it. So I think it's important, again, to put that in your statement of fundamental truths. Now, this is what it says: as governed by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, Pretty Paws Foundation reserves its right to initiate religious expression and prayer as it relates to its board of directors, its employees, volunteers, meetings, and participatory organizational activities. However, concerning the board of directors, employees, volunteers, and program participants of Pretty Paws Foundation, Inc., no policy of the organization shall require, prevent, or otherwise deny participation in constitutionally protected prayer. So that will just keep you safe if you're one who does have a religious element to you. I mean, that's just your culture, and you pray before your meeting minutes or what have you. You do want to include that in your bylaws. Next, Article 1, meetings. Now, I won't get into detail with these, but annual meeting just outlines when, how often you feel that your meeting should be held. Like here, it's once each calendar year. You can change that as you like. Okay. Order of business. That's section 2. You want to have that however you see fit, but you do definitely want to have your opening and your greeting. You want the reading of the previous minutes by the secretary. You want a report of the treasurer. You want to see what they have. A report of committees, any that you may be working on or with, any unfinished business. If you have to install any officers, you want to do that. New business, and of course, you want to adjourn. Now, this is just an outline for your nonprofit. Again, bylaws is how your nonprofit is governed. So, this is what you will be following, in every aspect of your organization. All right. So, next, again, keep in mind, I always see this. I'm making sure that's on every page. We don't want any kickbacks from the IRS. Number 3, special meetings is just telling you how to handle that if you need to request a special meeting. Notice, all right, that's written notice of all meetings shall be provided under this section or otherwise required by law. So it's just telling you how to handle notices requiring about meetings that you want to have coming up. Place of meeting, a quorum, all right. A majority of the directors shall constitute a quorum at a meeting. That means the amount of people that you will need at your meeting to make sure whatever you vote in or what have you is valid. Whatever you're talking about that day and that meeting, you have to have a quorum. a majority of the directors. All right. And you determine with that. If you only have 3 directors on your board, a majority is 2. Okay. One person out, you're good. Any informal action. All right. Now, go on to the next page. Here we are, Article 2, Board of Directors. This section is outlining some very important information as well. It says the board of directors shall handle the business of the organization and therefore should be business minded. They should lay hold of the vision given them and see it is implemented. And here, this is where we start listing the board, who they are, what their titles are, and what their job descriptions are. So here, section 1, number of directors. The officers of the organization shall be 3, as follows. I, of course, have president slash executive director, treasurer, and secretary, as determined by the board of directors. Remember, I said you can be president. Then there could be but then there could be an or excuse me, there could be an executive director, treasurer, and secretary. Okay, however you want to do that. You have that leeway here. You do not have that leeway here. Okay. And again, point out, secretary cannot carry 2 roles. See, right here it says 2 or more offices may be held by one person, so long as that one person does not act in more than one capacity in a transaction, which requires the action of 1 or more officers. It is very highly likely that a secretary will be doing more than one thing. Like the secretary you can't be treasurer and secretary. It's just very difficult to do that. So just keep that in mind. You want to have a treasurer, you want to have a secretary. Okay. And then of course here, excuse me. And then this just outlines their duties. You can add to that as you see fit. You can take from it as you see fit. Then we're talking about election and term of office. This tells how often the board of directors should be elected. Okay. Quorum, we talked about that. Adverse interests, organizational meeting of board, regular meeting. It's just talking about how to address all of that. If you have special meetings, okay, procedures. The vote of a majority of directors present at a properly called meeting at which a quorum exists shall be the act of the board of directors unless the vote of a greater number is required by law or by these bylaws for a particular reason. And it just goes into other procedures that you need to keep in mind. Emergency action and formal action. I will let you read all of this yourself. Removal vacancies tells you what the board can and cannot do. The board of directors shall have the power to remove an officer or board member of the organization. A director or officer shall be subject to removal at will, that is, with or without cause, at a meeting called for that purpose. Tells you how to handle that in such situations as removal, death, what have you, resignation, what have you. Here we are. Next page. Ad hoc committees. That's a committee that may be formed when you feel it's necessary. It could be formed at any time. Annual accounting period. I talked about that in the last video. We mentioned that the annual accounting period will be December. Now, annual accounting period, that's the tax year, right? Of which the annual financial records for the organization are based. Taxes must be filed to the IRS no later than the 15th day of the 5th month after the organization's annual accounting period. I mentioned that in the previous video. So be sure again to watch each one of those videos so that you will get a good understanding of what I'm addressing here. Talked about budgets here, personnel responsibility, records. Every director shall have the absolute right at any reasonable time to inspect and copy all books, records, and documents of every kind, and to inspect the physical properties of the organization. All right. Compensation. No director, board member, or officer shall receive at any time any of the net earnings or profit from the operations of the organization. Because remember, you're not a for profit, so there is no profit for you to receive. However, this shall not prevent the payment to any such person of reasonable compensation for services rendered to or for the organization. All right, next page. Article 3, vacancy of offices. This is very important. It's telling you what's going to get you vacated, all right, if you do these things. So the board of directors of the organization shall have the authority to declare any office vacant. Grounds for such action shall be failure to cooperate with the organization's programs, immoral conduct, illegal conduct, for any good and sufficient cause. All right. Any incumbent under charges shall have the opportunity for a fair and impartial hearing before the joint meeting of the board of directors. The decision of the board of directors shall be considered final, and the incumbent may have no further recourse. So that's extremely important. And here we are, Article 4, corporate seal, execution of instruments. All of my clients prefer not to have a corporate seal. I actually also recommend that, you don't have a corporate seal, but it's up to you. So here, the organization shall not have a corporate seal. Now, a corporate seal is not required anymore. It used to be, but it's not required to make a document legal, your organization's document legal, if you go into any lease or what have you. So that's up to you. If you want to have a corporate seal, absolutely up to you. You still have to sign off on it, whatever document, any written instrument, what have you. That's completely up to you. Article 5, amendment to bylaws. The bylaws are amended the bylaws may be amended, altered or repealed by the board of directors by a majority of a quorum vote at any regular or special meeting. The text of the proposed change shall be distributed to all board members at least 10 days before the meeting. Now, if you want it distributed at least 5 days before the meeting, that's up to you. There's leeway on how many days before, but they must be distributed. Give the board time to read over them. Once adopted, the revised bylaws and meeting minutes adopting the revision must be submitted to the Internal Revenue Services, Charities and Nonprofits Division. You could do that via fax or via U.S. Mail, which is recommended. I don't like to fax things. A lot of times, it may be that they don't get the fax, but if you mail it, and I always mail it, you can mail it certified mail, or you can use the 2-day mail, priority mail, where you'll be sure to get a receipt. You'll know they actually received it. And this is to address all changes must go to. Do not alter, amend, what have you, your bylaws, and just keep them in your records and not send it to the IRS. You must send all changes to the IRS. Article 6, indemnification. Any director or officer who is involved in litigation by reason of his or her position as a director or officer of this organization shall be indemnified and held harmless by the organization to the fullest extent authorized by law as it exists. All right, so that's just how you want to do that, because um, the directors are if they're acting on behalf of the organization and something happens, they should be held harmless. All right. It's kind of like, I would say, maybe like an LLC, how it's not the individual that's held liable, it's the corporation. So yeah. So sorry about that. Dissolution. You don't get this right, again, you're not going to be approved. But you're good here because you got this right at the state, okay? So dissolution tells what happens to all of the nonprofits' assets if it should so dissolve. All liability, and obligations shall be paid, satisfied, so sorry, and discharged, or adequate provision shall be made therefor. Assets not held upon a condition requiring return, transfer, or conveyance to any other organization or individual shall be distributed, transferred, or conveyed in trust or otherwise to charitable and educational organizations, organized under Section 501(c)(3) of the Internal Revenue Code, all right, as of 1986 as amended. And then here you want to certify, you want to sign your executive director here, president and executive director. Remember in the video last, I just put my name there. And this is the day. I always, again, as a general rule, I keep this in line. I don't switch back and forth. The day that I say that I signed this bylaws into effect with, of course, the board of resolution, the voting in of it, the adopting of it, is the date that you organize at the state. That just keeps it streamlined. You do not have to do this. I just do it to keep everything streamlined. So this is the date I signed. This is the date I adopted. And then the next page, you want to list your board of directors and officers. And we've got me listed. And it's important because these are two roles. You want to reference the section that says, as allowed in bylaws per Article 2, Board of Directors, Section 1, number of directors. And then you want to put your addresses. These are your home addresses. These addresses, unless I never put, like, if you have an office, I don't put the office address for the board of directors addresses. I put their home address because you have to keep in mind that if you need to notify them by mail of an important meeting that maybe you called a special meeting or what have you, if you mail it to their office, but they're at home, will they get it? No. So you want to put the home addresses here because again, this is for this is what you're going to be referencing when you're, governing your nonprofit. Again, so you want the secretary to know your home address so they can mail it out to your home address. You may not get it at your office. You may not even be one that goes into that particular location. And that's your end of and that's your end of bylaws. I'm so sorry. I'm just kind of tripping up. And here in just a moment, I'm going to show you the simple wording that you need to include if you do have family members on your board. It's going to be an attachment. We'll talk about it again, but I just wanted to show you that. Okay, so quickly, I'm going to address how you handle if you have a family member on your board of directors, and the IRS is certainly perfectly okay with that as long as you let them know exactly how the relation exists. So I've had a couple of you reach out to me and ask me that question, and this is what you would do. As always, again, at the beginning of this page, this is separate from your bylaws. This is just a separate attachment that you're going to include. You would put the name of the foundation and the EIN number. Again, this is a made-up number. Um, Here, you want to put, are any of your officers, directors, or trustees related to each other through family or business relationships? If yes, identify the individuals and explain the relationship. So here I put Beatrice Adams, President and Executive Director. And again, you want to reference the section that shows you're allowed to do both roles, but not at the same time, remember? So I put in parentheses and in italics, as allowed in bylaws per Article 7. Officers, section 1, number of officers. Make sure you're just grabbing the right section because your bylaws could change. It could be different. Yours could be shorter. It could be longer than what the bylaws that I've indicated. So it may not be under that particular section and article. So you want to make sure you're getting that right. So I say Beatrice Adams, President and Executive Director, as allowed in bylaws per Article 7. Officers, section 1, number of officers, is the wife of Tim Adams, treasurer. Now, go back and look at my videos. Remember, of course, this is not my husband, but I just make this up, and I know I hate to keep saying that, but I just want to let you know these are all made up. This is just for instructional purposes. Of course, that is my name, Beatrice Adams. So again, this is what you want to do. If you have any members, Beatrice Adams, give the title, is the wife of Tim Adams, treasurer. Okay, so just be very specific about that. And I thank you so much for joining me in on this video. Thank you for your time and your patience. I look so forward to seeing you in the next video as we keep hammering through this long form 1023. Don't forget to look in the link below, and I will have put in that link the bylaws that I just went over, so you'll have that information. And I'll also put this information in here as far as the family relationship that needs to go to the IRS if you should have that situation. And you have a great day, and thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you in the next video.